The flickering fluorescent light cast a sickly pallor over the cramped cell as Callan paced, his fingers tracing the walls that held him captive. Outside, the distant clanging of metal echoed through the prison, a reminder of the world he would soon leave behind. The clock on the wall ticked mercilessly, each second stealing away the precious moments he had left to unearth the truth and prove his innocence. With only a day before the executioner's gavel fell, desperation clawed at his throat, urging him to act. He had been wrongfully convicted of a crime he didn't commit, and now he was his own last hope. Callan's plan was simple yet fraught with peril. He had one ally in the prison, a fellow inmate named Jace, who had connections with the guards. If he could persuade Jace to help him retrieve the evidence that could clear his name, he might just stand a chance. The problem was Jace was known for his volatile temperament, and trust was a currency that had little value behind bars. He found Jace in the yard, his muscular frame silhouetted against the gray sky, a cigarette dangling from his lips. The smell of smoke mingled with the scent of damp earth, and Callan's heart raced as he approached. "I need your help," he said, keeping his voice steady despite the tremor inside him. Jace looked at him through narrowed eyes, the smoke curling around his face. "What's in it for me?" he asked, a smirk dancing on his lips. Callan hesitated, knowing he was treading on thin ice. "If we can get the surveillance footage from the day of the incident, it will show I was nowhere near the scene. You know I didn't do it." Lean. The smirk vanished, replaced by skepticism. "And what makes you think I can get access to that?" With a surge of determination, Callan leaned in, lowering his voice. "You want to get out of here, right? Help me and I'll make sure you get a shot at parole. I'll tell the lawyers what you've done for me." Done. Jace considered this, his brow furrowing. The clock was ticking, and Callan could feel the weight of urgency pressing down on them. Finally, Jace nodded, albeit reluctantly. "All right, but it won't be easy. We'll have to time it just right." 9. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the yard, the two men plotted their move. They would need to sneak into the surveillance room during the shift change when the guards were distracted. With each passing hour, Callan felt the noose tightening around his neck. When the time came, adrenaline surged through him as they crept through the corridors, the smell of old concrete and rusted metal filling his nostrils. Every creak of the floor seemed to echo in the silence, and Callan's heart raced as they reached the door to the surveillance room. Jace picked the lock with nimble fingers, but just as they slipped inside, the sound of approaching footsteps froze them in their tracks. Panic flared as they ducked behind the desk, holding their breath. A guard entered, oblivious to their presence, and began scrolling through the footage. Callan's mind raced with thoughts of what would happen if they were caught. He could almost feel the cold steel of the executioner's chamber closing in on him. With a deep breath, he gestured to Jace, who had a determined look on his face. They needed to act quickly. As the guard continued watching, Jace snatched a nearby pen and threw it against the wall. The guard jumped, turning to investigate the noise, giving them a fleeting moment to slip out from their hiding spot and reach for the recorder. They grabbed the device, the weight of it heavy in Callan's hands. Just as they turned to escape, the guard re-entered, and a struggle ensued. Callan felt the guard's grip on his arm, the world spinning in a haze of chaos. In that moment, he knew failure would mean death, but the spark of hope refused to die. With a desperate twist, he broke free and bolted for the door, pulling Jace along behind him. They made it back to the cell, breathless and trembling, the recorded footage their only link to freedom. As dawn broke over the prison, painting the walls with streaks of gold, Callan sat in his cell, the recorder clutched tightly in his hands. The evidence was undeniable. When the guards arrived to escort him to the execution chamber, he felt a rush of fear mixed with a flicker of hope. In those final moments, he played the footage for the warden, who watched in disbelief as the truth unfolded before him. Callan's heart pounded in his chest, each beat a reminder of how close he had come to losing everything. The warden's face turned pale as he realized the implications. "Stop the execution," he ordered, his voice shaking. As Callan stepped back from the brink of death, the prison walls no longer felt like a cage, but a gateway to a life he thought he had lost. The morning sun streamed through the bars, illuminating a path toward redemption, and for the first time, he allowed himself to breathe deeply, the scent of freedom finally within reach.